All right, hey, it's 7 o'clock, so let's get this started here tonight. Welcome to everybody. Uh, Again, you're here tonight because we're looking at modified sports, and it's a modified sports preview for 25-26. So starting with next fall. Glad you're all here. Let you guys know that this is being recorded. First to start, I'd just like to say thank you to a couple people. One to our athletic director, Joe Haven, who's a big part of modified sports, a big supporter with us. Middle school principal, Joe McCora, who again, another excellent supporter for us and things going. And kind of new to the scene is our assistant superintendent, Ms. Ann Meyer, who is really doing a lot for us here this year too as well. So we're good to go. Right. Again, this is the preview for uh, modified sports this year and next year. So we're gonna kind of make through with that. So we're gonna kind of work from here. All right. All right. Have a little issue here. A little
You want me to share mine?
yeah, I'm having trouble with the switching of the screen here.
No
And
problem. Let me share mine.
hopefully that's the bump that we got.
Can you see it?
I can, yep.
Go ahead. You can start from this and I'll move it forward.
Okay. We can go to the next slide, Ann. That would be great. Okay, tonight, our agenda here, gonna just go over modified sports as far as introduction to and things like the expectations and what we think about modified sports here in Bronxville. We'll go through an overview of the athletic seasons, which are three, fall, winter, and spring. We'll take a little look at modified day-to-day, what you can expect and what your child can expect being involved in modified sports on a day-to-day basis. Some of the expectations that we have as far as what coaches expect from kids and what the programs expect from students and parents, and try to make sure that you guys know what the next thing for you guys to do when you choose to have your child be involved, to make sure that the communication is great and that we're all on the same page and we work from there. Uh, One thing we won't go over on this particular Zoom is the APP, the Advanced Placement Process. That will start in about a half an hour, and our athletic director, Mr. Joe Haven, will run that one for you. And that one is the process where middle school students would choose to play up on a high school sport, so they'd be able to play on a JV team. But that's something that will come at a later time. Okay. Okay, move it. See, the screen says it's a privilege to be a Bronco. And I hope that's not a cliche to anybody, because we look at that and it's really a two-way street. From where I sit, it's a great privilege to be part of the program. Our coaches feel the same way. We want your child to feel that way as well. Uh, and we work on that. For our athletes to walk out onto the field or the court or onto the track with Bronxville across their chest is a privilege. And as coaches, for us to have, Bronxville on our shirts, again, we look at it in that way. And it's something that we do, focus on and try to keep it, a way that we will work on it and kind of head down that road. Um, with that, the privilege comes the standard. And you see the term respect. And we're not throwing that one out there lightly either. You see that we have, respect for teammates. Our expectation is that every athlete will be kind with their teammates, saying the right things and aspects like that. In modified, we don't have permanent captains. And the idea that what we look for that is we reward, the good behavior for the respect for teammates. And so different captains on different teams on different games. And everybody will kind of get a chance, to show that. We have respect for the game. Again, that looks for when we start putting forth our effort and our commitment to it. Again, we see that in different ways. Respect for our opponents. As we come out to play, we play to win. We respect our opponents, but we don't fear anybody. So we come out and we play our best. But we don't, look to run it up on anybody. Good example is our baseball team today. They finally got to play. Baseball started with, practice before Easter break, and they played today. They won. They won by a decent margin, but they could have won by a much bigger margin. And they didn't. Simply because, we look at that in terms of how we want to represent ourselves and things coming down the line. Respect for coaches. That's a big expectation for us, that our athletes will listen to our coaches and, implement the aspects that they want to have happen. And we also have our coaches respect for their athletes too. So that again is a two-way street. Big one for us is respect for officials. Our coaches are not going to be on the sidelines ranting and raving about the officials or anything with that. And the expectation is that the kids will follow the same rule. And respect for self. We teach things like positive self-talk and the idea that, our kids are going to get confidence through repetition. And we try to put them into successful situations so that they will have that aspect coming into their play, working through that. So our seasons, you see it, the fall season, we start on September 4th, 2025. That is the Thursday after school starts on Tuesday the 2nd. So there's a couple of days to kind of get used to, the new school year. Sign-ups on Family ID, that's our registration process. That will begin in mid-August. 30 days before the start of the season is when Family ID opens, and we'll go through a Family ID and let you see exactly where that is and how that works. But you can see that email will come out via athletics, in the beginning of August, and hopefully everybody will get that opportunity to register. We do have 5 teams: football, girls soccer, boys soccer, field hockey, and cross country. Now, a big part of this too is you're only allowed to play one sport per season. And in modified, we start early. Schedules are pretty much done, and the first game isn't until the end of September. So, for example, if I decide to go out for football and I played the first 3 or 4 practices and decided this isn't for me, there still is a chance that I could turn around and join another sport and have an opportunity to get in my practices and be part of that team. So it plays in our favor a little bit starting early and coming through that way. Into the winter season we are. That start date this year is December 1st. That's the first Monday after Thanksgiving. Again, signups with Family ID, you can see 30 days in advance, roughly November 1st. We have 3 teams that are competing outside, 4 actually. Boys basketball, girls basketball, indoor track, which I always laugh at the name of that because we don't have an indoor facility and our kids practice outside, although we do run some indoor meets at some different places. Ice hockey, you can see, is a consortium with Eastchester, Edgemont, and Tuckahoe. And we have a house league in basketball. And what that is this. Boys and girls basketball, this past year we had 55 boys and I think 38 girls sign up to play modified basketball. The number that we keep is 16. So rather than just cut kids out of the program, we give each kid an opportunity to play. So if your son or your daughter wants to play basketball in Bronxville Middle School, there's a place for them. It might not look the same for every student, for every kid, but there is a place for everybody. The modified team that travels and competes will be roughly about 16 players. And that's where the house league comes in. The house league is a intramural program. It's run right after school, like the rest of modified does. There's a skill component to it, but there's a lot of playtime as well. So the idea that the kids will be, getting a chance to play, and coaches really look at keeping the love for the game. More than one kid that did not make the travel team as a seventh grader, that's both boys and girls. They went to house league, and as eighth graders, they made the travel team. So it is an aspect to our program that, again, we keep all the kids with us, but again, it might not look the same. The spring season, already into 2026, as you can see, March 23rd. Signups Family ID, the exact same aspect here. You can see the teams that we offer. We offer baseball, boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, track and field, and softball when Tuckahoe has a team. Last year, not this current season, Tuckahoe had a modified team, which we had a couple of girls play. This year they had a junior varsity team, a JV team. So our kids that went over to Tuckahoe to play had to go through the APP process in order to compete. But it does kind of give us this setup here, so you can see, like ice hockey, if we can combine with another school to give our kids an opportunity to play a sport that we don't offer just on our own, we will do that.
I'm just gonna make a quick comment, David, because as a parent of a son who's now in ninth grade, it was something that I didn't realize. You have to register for each season. So
Mhm.
if you register for the fall and your child wants to play a winter sport, you have to register again. And then if they want to play a spring sport, you register again. So that's just important because it's your first time doing this. You're going to go into Family ID each time and register before the season.
Mhm. All right, the day today. Modified will practice 4 days a week. Uh, Usually there's nothing on Wednesdays unless game schedules can't be adjusted. But that's not always the case. Uh, Modified teams practice different ones on different days. But as you see at the bottom, practice schedules will be consistent. So for example, this spring season, our baseball coach cannot be here on Mondays. So that team practices Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Uh, our boys and girls lacrosse teams, they practice Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So there is a consistency to the practice, but sometimes it's a little bit different for the different teams. Um, if there's a game that might be scheduled on one of their days off, that's when the change might occur to where there'll be a special day off or a different day off for them. And that's if we can't adjust that particular game. And we're pretty much looking at that terms of when can we get officials and when can we get field space as far as what we have. Practices usually take place right after school for the modified teams. Middle school gets out at 3 o'clock. Practices start at 3:15, so they do have to hustle down, get changed and get out to the field or onto the court or onto the track. Uh, Beginning of the season, it might go a little bit longer than the 75 minutes. You might get the 90 minutes, but once games start and field space becomes a little tight, we back that down a little bit. Basketball, again, is the outlier, just like it was with the different teams. There will be a late slot from 4:45 to 6 o'clock. And again, that's just due to gym space. Our modified teams practice in the blue gym One team will go early, one team will go late. It just so happened this past year, again, you think about where the coaches are. Our coach's schedule didn't allow the girls' coach to get there till a little bit later. So the girls were very consistent at 4:45 or 4:30, and the boys were very consistent at being there early. If a student can't make a practice, one of our expectations is that they'll communicate that with their coach in terms of, hey, I can't be there today. Again, we start talking about that standard of respect, and that's respect for the game themselves and the coach. If your child can't make it for a couple of 3 days or something like that, again, we understand there is a set number of practices that they have to be attending before they can play in games. And we can communicate all those little things a little bit later. Game schedules, once they're solidified, the coaches will distribute those. Those usually come out very early here, and we'd be able to see where we are. And again, we're pretty solid with those, but there's always, one or two changes that show up during the year. We do provide transportation, so all the kids are on buses to and from away events. Almost wanted to take that last bullet point out of there. The idea of asking for parent volunteers to drive. That hasn't happened in the last 2 years. Right after COVID, when all the bus drivers went to the trucking companies, we had a very difficult time getting buses, but that hasn't been the case for the last 2 years. So that's something I think that we would be able to kind of eliminate, and I don't think you would have to worry too much about having to drive. Really, really like the kids to ride on the bus, to, it'd be great from. That's a big part of the modified experience, being a team and being to go away and, coming off the bus together and getting back on the bus together. We always know that that's not always the case. Sometimes you're going to go to the game and you'd like to take your child home. There's forms and stuff to fill out, but just rest assured that for every away game, your child will be on the bus, supervised and picked up and brought back to the school, safe and sound. Some of our expectations, again, we want to make this exceptional. Just good, is the enemy of great. We want to make sure that we get this to be a situation where every child that walks out there with Bronxville on their chest has just a great experience. They're going to win. Wish I could take the next statement out as well, but we're going to lose. We keep score. But again, we start talking about how we approach modified sports. The idea that, we win, we lose, we move on. We look to, set team and individual performance goals and look to achieve those goals. And those performance goals for certain kids might be a little bit different than their teammate right next to them. This is modified. Some of the kids have a lot of experience in the sport, and some of the kids don't. And we understand that. We also understand too that the child that played modified in 7th grade comes back in 8th grade, and we don't even recognize them because they've grown and they're shaving and doing all kinds of other things, and so it's a whole different aspect to it, and we're well aware of that. So the team goals, again, we look at those in terms of, we want to win. But we're a double goal program. I'm kind of moving on there. We also turn around and say, can you go back one day, Sam? We want to compete, but at the same time, maximum effort is what we're really looking forward to. And you talk about respect for the game, that kids always give their best. And, we talk about the 1% rule, just get a little 1% better today. And goes with that, continuously learning and improving. And you're not going to hear our coaches say things, like, what are you doing out there? You're making a mistake. The worst thing you're going to hear our coach say to one of our athletes is, you're better than that. And that's usually going to be for an effort thing, not a mental mistake or not a physical mistake that they might make in a game. Because at the modified level, we want to make sure that they're not afraid to do that, that they're going to come out and they're going to try, they're going to give their best, and you know what happens with that happens. So we see that. Parents, for you guys, um, the next steps for you guys would be to start to think about, again, kind of above that register your child, would be what sports would you like your child to participate? Again, one sport per season. Um, what wasn't on this list is squash. Squash is offered in the winter time, and it is a middle school kind of a club. If you participate in squash, you wouldn't be allowed to participate in basketball or outdoor track or indoor track. And the same thing with you know, all the other seasons. Um, but when you register your child on Family ID, again, I'm don't have it set up here for that, but you could turn around and you can go to the athletics website, and under information, you could click on Family ID, and you'd be able to turn around and see it. And it's, I don't want to insult your intelligence. It's easy for you to do. And as Ann said earlier, every single season is a new season. So if I register my child for soccer in the fall and I want them to run track in the winter, I have to go back to Family ID, and you'll have an account set up. So you won't have to go through the entire process, everything. You'll just log on to your account and point and click to get your child signed up. Uh, a couple of the things that happen on Family ID that we look at is in terms of, you know, a athlete will get cleared. And so once an athlete is cleared, they're ready for practice. If they're not cleared, we can't let them practice. And so that's why getting early is a good thing. Our nurses and our athletic trainer, Danielle, who's Alpha One, do a really, really fantastic job. We didn't have a kid in the entire modified season, fall, winter, or spring this year, miss a practice who had all their stuff into the nurses. They actually cleared kids on different days. So they go above and beyond to make sure that everything's done. Why a child wouldn't be cleared. You see right now that there's an expired or an expiring physical. So even if you know, I have my physical and it's dated, you know, October, you know, 21st, 2025 is, you know, when it's going to expire. Well, when I register for the fall, that's going to get kicked back because the fall season runs to right up to Halloween. And so that would be one reason, and that's the big reason. Another reason you see is a doctor's note for special situations. If your child needs special carry for anything like asthma inhaler, or they self-carry for an EpiPen or anything like that, there has to be a physician's note for that in terms of on file, so that our coaches will have that and get a good understanding of, you know, what your child's needs are. And that would be communicated to you. And the other one that pops up is just on the back side of the physical, the New York State physical, there's a cardiac section, and it's real small and it's at the top and it's easy to miss for the doctors. And that's just checking things off as far as again, making sure with some of the COVID aspects and stuff that come onto play here. All right. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. I
I'm
get
gonna read
nervous.
I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
read the ones that came up in the chat. And
Okay.
Joe, I think you might be able to help. So for swimming and skiing, given that there's only a varsity team, what does seventh grade participation look like?
So the athletes would have to, well, good evening, everybody. The athletes would have to pass the APP for any sport that we don't offer modified for if they want to participate at the next level. They would have to do the APP. And basically, we'll discuss APP in the next meeting, but it is a physical test and a maturation test that's take place. So for those two sports, and also for tennis, because tennis, we don't have a modified team. So if middle school children want to play on a sport that's not offered at their level, they would need to pass the APP in order to try out for the next sport. Sometimes students are given the opportunity to move up, many times eighth graders. So many times eighth graders are given the opportunity after they do an ID camp, like we have a soccer ID camp coming up, and they might APP up to play JV. But traditionally the sports that people do APP up for are the sports that we do not have modified in, which is the ski, the tennis, and the swim. The test is rigorous, excuse me, and the children I recommend the children do some work over the summer to pass the test, and we'll share the information about the test later on today.
Is there a max number of students? I know we're gonna run out of time because we have to get
Okay.
to the ABP Zoom at 7:30. Is there a max number of students who can sign up for soccer? Is there a number where there will be 2 teams, or is there always just one?
The 5 years I've been here, there's been one team for each gender. And we don't, as David said earlier, the only sport we really make cuts for right now is basketball, just because of the facility size and the number of kids who play. Girls soccer last year had about 29 to 30 girls. There might have been 34 on the roster, but that came regularly, or 29 to 30. And the boys team had about 27 boys that were on the roster, and about 20 came regularly.
Does transportation include for hockey or softball if they're on a joint team with another school?
So currently we transport if the practices are right after school. If they're not after school, we don't transport. So for instance, right now the girls who play softball over at Tuckahoe, we transport those girls over there. We have a couple girls who play volleyball at Mount Vernon, practice after school, we transport then. But if, hockey traditionally practices a little bit later, what's a 4 o'clock start, a 5 o'clock start, sometimes it's not 8 o'clock start, the school does not transport for those.
If someone has a physical that is gonna come up like at the end of August, what do they do about the fall season? Should they try to get, what do you recommend?
So that's a great question. So basically your physical is good for one full calendar year. At the modified level, an August physical is great because we don't start sports until September 1st, September 2nd. But as your child moves up, football this year starting the 25th. So you want to make sure your physical is done before then. Our nurses do work with you a little bit with that, but basically your physical has to be current in order for you to practice. And I do know with insurances and things that sometimes you can't get in till 2 days after practice starts. Well, if your physical expired on the 23rd and practice starts on the 25th, you just can't, by New York state law, you cannot start practicing until you have an active physical.
So I think in that case, file the physical that expires at the end of August, and then maybe let the nurses know and make sure you have your new physical on file right away.
Correct.
For real quick, football, how does football work with weight requirements and restrictions? Some boys who played 5th and 6th grade are a little bit concerned about modified.
There is no weight restriction for football, no size restriction, weight restriction. Modified is 7th and 8th graders.
And to get to their
Yep.
concern too, there's modified football. We have what we commonly call the fifth quarter. And it's played at different times, and that lets the coaches, they'll talk to the opposing coaches and they'll turn around, they'll say, hey, I've got this group of kids, and you got, that kid over there, I'll hold this kid out of this quarter and you hold that kid. And so they make sure that the kids are safe in that manner.
And then the volleyball, I believe we have volleyball, but only in the high school at this point. So that's why it wasn't on the list for modified sports. Although I know Joe is exploring volleyball, but at this point we don't offer it for modified. We do have a meeting at 7:30 about the APP process. I'm not sure that Zoom got sent to you, so I am going to stop sharing and put the Zoom link for all of you. Most of you do not need to go to this meeting about the advanced placement process. It is primarily for 8th graders, but I guess if your child skis, swims, tennis, this is the Zoom link, and we are going to leave this meeting But David is always available, Joe is always available, and we're gonna be sending out the recording of this meeting tomorrow morning with the email addresses for contacts, the slides, and we also have a modified sports handbook that we're gonna share with you as well as the link to Family ID. So thanks everyone for joining
Thank
us
you.
this evening.
You guys.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Joe.
Um,